Hey everyone, my name's Jayda G. I'm a DJ and music producer. I live here in London, and yeah, there's much more, but those are the basics, I guess. Yes, definitely. Growing up in Canada, I grew up in a really small town where I grew up in the mountains basically, surrounded by trees and nature and stuff. And so I think that really definitely informs my music in maybe a very kind of basic sense in terms of like where I need to come from in order to feel grounded to make music and such. Yeah. Yeah, think about that one. I think it was probably around 2012, 2013, so it wasn't too long ago. But it had been in my mind for many years, and it was kind of like a combo of things of kind of taking the plunge to like spend the money because decks and mixers and all those things are quite expensive. And at the time, I was just working in biology, pretty minimum wage stuff, and was preparing to go do my master's. So I was like, am I doing it? Yes. So yeah, that's first time I got decks anyways. Yeah, I had friends who were DJs. Everyone was kind of doing their own thing though. Like I had friends who were vinyl only. I had friends who were all using like USBs, different kinds of music. So real mishmash. And so I kind of had to find my way of what I enjoyed in that sense of like how I like to DJ and what speaks to me. So I definitely started with vinyl because it just I like the tactile sensation that you're actually touching things and moving things and adjusting things. So, but yeah, no, I definitely had people who around me who at least I could talk to a little bit about these things before taking the plunge. In Vancouver, that's where I was living at the time. No, I had one friend. Her name's Laura Sparrow. She goes by LNS, and she was a big part of kind of my learning, I guess, because she also was learning at the same time. So we both started not knowing much and helping each other. Basically, it was a real camaraderie in that sense, and something I really value because it's one thing to have someone who you look up to and can help you and stuff, but it's a different thing when you feel safe with a person to mess up or talk about things and kind of research things together, and it gives you it helps you build a sense of togetherness and confidence in the end. Yes, definitely. My parents were really into music growing up and to this day. And so when I was younger, I learned to play piano. I think my mom put me in piano, I think around age 4 or 5. Same with violin as well. And I didn't have a choice in the matter. And of course, like I was one of the typical kids who was like, I don't like this. I don't want to do this anymore. But thankfully, my mom was just like, when you're 16, you can decide if you don't want to do it. But by then, like, it's all you know as a kid. You were doing it since you were 4 or 5. Like, been doing it for over 10 years by that point. So you might as well just keep going, right? Oh gosh, so many favorite musical memories. I would say probably like top of the list was my first proper like concert that I went to as a kid. I think I was 9 years old, and my parents had gotten tickets to go see James Brown. And Well, that just kind of says it all, I think.
Yeah,
It
I
was
mean,
pretty epic. It was something like, as a kid, like, I knew his songs, but it was just so much more to see the whole thing in person. And it's just so extra and over the top and funky and all the things. So, yeah, definitely one of my top musical memories. Oh gosh, it's a long list. But I would say biggest inspirations, top growing up, were Prince. Lot of Prince in the house. My sister is a huge fan of Prince, and being the youngest, I was definitely subjected to a lot of Prince when I was little, and it just obviously I took to the artist, and so yeah, lots of Prince, lots of D'Angelo, lots of Jimi Hendrix as well. Those I think would be like the top three that were like quite big influences for me as a kid. Difficult. Yeah, it was hard. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. Well, in terms of being a touring DJ and doing your master's degree, it's quite, yeah, it's quite difficult. But I did believe in what I was working in terms of my thesis for my master's, and I wanted to finish it. I wanted to see it through. And it just so happened that like I was getting booked a lot in Europe at the time. So I just did my best. I think that's kind of life, isn't it? Like you kind of get thrown into certain situations, and you just try and do your best. That's all you can do. So yeah, it definitely was difficult, but I'm happy for it. I feel very fortunate that I was able to have both those things in my life. So yeah, it was an intense schedule for sure. Yeah, definitely, especially well, it's influenced in small ways throughout my productions, with like song titles and kind of themes and such. Like my first EP, I think there was one song. It was called "Sound of Fuka," and it's a reference to this area where killer whales live that I was studying at the time. So like little like things like that. But then when it came to my album, I definitely used my thesis as more of an influence. There's one track called Missy Knows What's Up, where I sampled one of the head scientists who was part of a really big court case that kind of was a huge influence on my project, my master's project at the time. And it's just talking about, yeah, like how are we going to save these animals that are really deeply affected by pollution and human activities and such. And so, yeah, I would definitely say my science has influenced my music. Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it changed maybe more of what I was DJing at the time, in terms of that influence. I wouldn't say so production wise. Um, I really, when it comes to productions, I think it's good to get grounded in oneself and kind of pull from there, as well as influences and things that have happened within your life, because that's interesting to me anyways in terms of musical influence. But DJing, yeah, like living in Berlin, well, moving to Berlin kind of allowed me to travel a lot more easily at the time. And so I was able to dig in so many different places, not just within Berlin, but like all over Europe. And that definitely, yeah, of course, it would influence what I was DJing. And it continues to do so. It's fun. Significantly. It's funny because I really, like, I was so naive at the time, and in some ways still am, I guess. But um, because I grew up in Canada, like, I didn't grow up knowing what the big festivals were here in Europe. It's just there wasn't much crossover. I think the only festival I had heard of that was within this scene was Dimensions. So I didn't really know a lot about Dekmantel, and obviously I had heard of Boiler Room, but I didn't really understand the potential impact that it could have. So yeah, things changed, a lot afterwards. Obviously, I got more bookings, a lot more tension. I think the strangest bit was being recognized. That I had not ever thought that would ever happen, and it still continues to, like, surprise me every time. It's like, I think it's this, yeah, like, I just, I live in my own bubble, I guess. And so when people recognize me, it's just, I think it's the funniest thing, because I just think of me as, like, life's just ordinary, right? Till someone's like, hey, aren't you? And I'm like, huh? What? It's like, I don't know. Should I say yes? Should I say no? Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, the process has changed over time, especially as I learn more. Um, I think it's a combination of kind of setting an intention um, when I'm entering the studio. Sometimes it means just being open to whatever I have to create at that time. Sometimes it is like, okay, I want to make a dance track. Or sometimes it's something that I'm feeling emotionally at that time, and I want to tap into that. So I think there's that part of setting an intention, and then I always start with the drum pattern. That always helps in terms of getting a beat going. Even if it's just like really simple, like just like just a snare or something, or a clap, like something light. It's not always just like a big kick drum or something. And kind of moving from there to like melody and different effects and bass line and things like that, and just letting it build naturally, really. Wow. I would say, like, from the moment that, like, I got offered to make an album, and I'd say till when it was released, I'd say about a year and a half. I would say, like, from when I started making those first tracks, and, like, I made, like any album process, you're just making and making and making, and then you kind of like pick a song here and pick a song there, and it slowly starts making sense and coming together. And yeah, and by the time I think I handed it in, I started probably making around the summer of like 2000, and oh gosh, 2000, maybe it was 18. I'm not sure anymore. I don't even know anymore. No, 2017. Gosh, oh my gosh, that's a long time ago. Yeah, and I handed it in like late 2018, and then it was out by early 2019. And now we're in 2020. Lord. um, I think this is probably a challenge that everyone struggles through, is just figuring out the balance between, doing your work and doing what is asked of you, but also having your own boundaries and listening to those boundaries. I think that's been the biggest challenge, because it's quite exhausting DJing. Like, I think last year I figured, like, I was talking to someone else, and last year I think I definitely did over 80 shows, probably closer to 100, and it's a lot of shows. That's a, that's a lot of shows. And I think it's, finding that balance between work and personal life, and giving as much energy to your personal life as you do your work life. And, that's hopefully it's slowly changing, but the social norm is that you give it your all to your work life, but then other things suffer afterwards. So I think it's figuring out that balance and knowing your boundaries and sticking to them. Those have been probably the toughest things. I think my biggest achievement is, I would say, oh gosh, there's so much. Like in terms of like things that I'm happy about, but I think the biggest thing is by me being myself. Like I grew up, I was really fortunate in the sense that I grew up basically being allowed to be myself, and that being okay. And I think when I DJ and where like the place that I produce from within myself, I really am myself. Like what you see is what you get. And I think the best thing is when I hear, other, like when I hear from fans, especially like young women who say that me just being myself allows them the freedom to be themselves. Because I think that's the biggest achievement, because that's what it's all about, is you're trying to just uplift others and make them feel like they can do whatever they want to do in this world as well. I think that's very powerful. So yeah, hope I keep achieving that. Yeah, I think, well, when it comes to DJing and finding music, I'm just a really big nerd. Like, I'm like, this was even before DJing. Like, I just listen to music constantly, and I'm like constantly looking for stuff, and it's a real obsession. Um, so yeah, DJing's a real good profession for me. Because I get like, yeah, that's so I think I'm just always looking for new music. I'm always, reading up on things, and just because I'm just genuinely interested. I would be doing that even if I wasn't DJing. In terms of production wise, I think it's really setting aside time and space to create. And whatever that looks like, it's not always just sitting there and like making music in the studio. Sometimes it's just giving yourself space to even think about what you want to create, or writing things down, or having new experiences and taking those in. There's so many ways that you can be influenced when it comes to creating music. So yeah, time and space, I would say. Oh no, that's a hard one. I'd probably say it'd be really fun to go back to back with Moody Man. I'm a big fan. Kenny's awesome. He's also just like a really great person. He'd be really fun to go back to back with, I think. But he doesn't do back to backs anyway, so. I don't know about that one. I think I'm gonna have to skip that one. I'm not good. It's more just like whatever funniness happens, it's usually just me being a complete dork and not knowing what the hell's going on. So like getting lost, like that happens a lot. Getting lost at the festival and like not knowing where I am and trying to find the stage. Like now I've gotten to the point where I definitely have like whoever the artist liaison, I'm like, don't leave me. Like you can't leave me or else I will not be able to find where I'm supposed to be. I think it's just the weirdest moments are always just getting recognized. Like that's like I really like even at festivals, like I'm just like, oh yeah, right. Like because I'm such a I would go to festivals all the time. So now that I play at festivals, I'm still like in that mentality of like, oh, I get to go see like this artist and that artist. And then I kind of forget that that's, I'm also playing there. And then I'm like, enjoying some artist, and then people come up to you. And so I think that's always the part that's always a bit strange. But sometimes, people come, like, when they come up, they have such lovely, kind things to say, and it can, create a moment. So it can be good and strange and awkward, because I'm strange and awkward. So yeah. There's a cut, like, only one. I think the biggest thing would be nice is just some kind of social understanding that about phones. Like, I understand that, people want to capture the moment and everything, but it's gotten to a point where people don't enjoy where they are. And then I don't really understand why they're there. Like, because they're just standing there like this with the phone, And like, you're not, like, the whole point to me, clubbing, is to express yourself and be joyful and dance and interact in a positive way with others. And when you're just standing there with the phone, like staring at the phone, it's just like, I don't really like, what's the point? You might as well be at home, because you could just do the same thing at home, just stand there with the phone. So it's, I think but I think, when clubs try and put in like no phone kind of rules and stuff, that also becomes like a militant thing, and that creates a maybe not the most fun atmosphere as well. So I just wish it was just something that people understood for themselves, that maybe being a little bit more detached from their phones means they would be able to interact with their surroundings and have a more joyful time. So yeah. Oh gosh, I only can pick one. I know. I think, well, one definitely is magnetic fields. That was in India, in like the area of Rajasthan, and that was epic because it was my first time to India, and it's just such a beautiful location. The whole festival's in a palace, and it's just so epic and so beautiful. And there's a real, like, it was just such a good energy, that festival in general, like the artists who were there, the people who organized it, everyone who was attending. Like, you felt like the best festivals are when you as a DJ are feeling like you are a festival goer as well. Like, that's the best. Like, when all the DJs kind of go together and they're just like, oh, let's go check out this person, and it's like, and there's a real togetherness in that. So magnetic fields definitely was one, and then I think some of the most memorable, like, shows are really usually like quite, like, I'm one of my first gigs ever, like, that was pretty memorable, like in Glasgow, and it was like in this really shitty basement of this club, and like I remember, like, there was, like, people went crazy. Like, it was my first time to Glasgow, so like I remember just being so shocked. I was like, whoa, people are just like letting loose, like this is like next level, like. And it was so rowdy and so fun. Like, say, like, yeah, like, same in like some of the first shows, like, yeah, in London and stuff. And I don't know, there's so many, and I'm lucky to have so many. So I think you know what, it really, in terms of venue, yeah, I do like playing. I prefer smaller venues because it's just more intimate. But I've had that feeling of being like of being close with your audience, even in like a stage where there's like 8,000 people. Like, it's hard. It's harder to create that when there's so many people, but it does happen. And so it's really more, I think, of creating a vibe where there's a togetherness and a cohesiveness, that everyone is experiencing this at the same time. And that's like the ultimate achievement, I think, as a DJ in general. So that's kind of like always the best part, like, I think, aside from, yeah, a smaller venue maybe. You guys had redone it too, so it was more of like a 360 kind of situation, right? And it really was exactly that, like quite a huge room, but still everyone was like, we're in this together, like we're feeling this right now, you know? Oh my gosh, so many things. I could go on and on, but I'm not going to tell you anything. Lots of music coming out, working on all sorts of projects, you know, the usual, and you just have to pay attention to find out. Oh, well, I didn't plan to become a musician, so I'd just probably be an environmental consultant. That was the plan. I was going to do, yeah, my master's in toxicology and resource and environmental management. That was my degree. And yeah, usually when you do that, you go on to work in environmental consulting. You can do it privately, you can do it for government. There's so many different avenues you can take, and different areas you can work in. So that is definitely 100% what I would be doing if I wasn't doing this. Ooh, oh my gosh, so many. Well, Keep the Fire Burning is a classic. So that always gets everyone really happy. Makes me happy. Well, that's a good question. Yeah. Um, my brother. I send, I think, everything I make to my brother. Yeah, he's my go-to for feedback. It's been like that since the beginning, and I'm really lucky to have him and really trust his judgment and stuff. So yeah. It's funny moving here because I only moved here in August, I think. Yeah, it was roughly around August that I moved here, and there's so many cultural similarities between the UK and Canada. So I think it's having that kind of familiar way of bantering back and forth that's been actually quite comforting with traveling so much. So I think that's probably one of the best things about moving to London. Yeah, it kind of feels like the closest place I can get to home without being at home. So, yeah. Ooh, do I have a song I listen to every day? No, I don't think so. I have a lot of meditation mixes I listen to every day. Do those count? I don't know if the fans want to hear that one. I listen to relaxation mix every day. But yeah, that definitely I don't wouldn't say there's like one particular song I listen to every day, but I definitely listen to music in general every day. Trust your gut. Yeah, exactly. That's, yeah, trust your gut. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. A lot of things now. It's so exciting. It's like so much freedom. I don't even know what to do with it all. um, I now I it's been really interesting. Because I travel so much, it's been hard to build a community here for myself within London. So I think that's strangely enough what's been happening. Like I'm getting to know like my neighbors and like meeting people through there. Obviously, like always social distancing, like walking and outside and all that jazz. But that's actually been really cool. Like probably like I was talking to my sister, and I was like, I think I'm making friends. My sister's like, I swear, like you're the only person probably making friends during quarantine. But I'm like, yeah, it's because I'm actually home, like, so that's been pretty cool. Oh, there's the other things too of like working out a lot, reading a ton, which has been something I've missed a lot being on the road. So that's been really enjoyable, and getting better at cooking. All the things we've seen on Instagram, pretty much like right there with them, baking banana bread and shit. Like, it's a lot. Like, it's definitely not something that comes naturally to me, I think. Yeah, it definitely takes its toll energetically. And luckily, like, I have a tour manager that started traveling with me maybe a little bit before I moved to London, and she's been an immense help to touring as frequently as I was, and having someone who you trust and get along with on like a deep level really really helps the whole thing. So yeah, it's difficult, but at the same time, like, I do feel very fortunate to do the things that I do. So yeah, wouldn't change it. This is really funny, actually. Like, I remember, who was I talking to? I was talking to Sam, Floating Point Sam, because we were like in the car driving to some festival or something, and I like put on like Kendrick Lamar on the like in the car, and then I was like, yeah, I listen to Kendrick Lamar a lot, especially like in the airport. And then Sam's like, Kendrick Lamar is like your airport go-to music? Like, really? I was like, yeah, man, I listen to a lot of like hip hop and R&B. Like, I love that shit. Like, it's what I grew up with. So yeah, like I listen to a lot of various hip hop and R&B and soul, like, pretty regularly in general. So yeah. Ooh, do you have a favorite type of food? I love sweet things like cakes and cupcakes, anything with cake and potatoes. Basically, cake and potatoes. It's like also very like comforting too. I know they're like probably the worst things for me, but yeah, I would definitely say, yeah, been eating a lot of cake and potatoes lately. Um, I'm not doing any direct science work, no, not in terms of like an academic sense, but there is definitely like other kind of scientific leaning projects that don't have much to do with my music projects that I'm working on, and yeah, you guys will hear more about that at some point. Ooh, soul. Oh, wow. What kind of question is that? That's horrible. Oh my lord. Well, today it's disco, but tomorrow it might be house. So I don't know. Both. Depends on the venue. Small venue, all night set. Festival, 2 hours. I love going to the cinema. Cinema. Um, I like eating in. I like cooking for myself. I did not grow up with trains. So for me, trains are so cool. So I pick trains. I'm just like, wow, what a way to travel. Like, this is great. I miss them. I miss all of you. And I cannot wait for that first party back when we all get together and dance.